God damn it.
Yeah, we're recording. Camera.
Hey guys, it's Cam from Craft & Tailored, and in this episode of What Is On My Wrist, we are talking about a 1979 Rolex Yellow Gold Date Just reference 16018 with a very special dial. The dial variant is Tiger Eye, and it's actually part of Rolex's Stone series of dials, so very rare, very special, and also fits into a very specific period in time, which makes this one worthy of some wrist time and some discussion. So the reference 16018 was produced from around 1977 to 1988. So pretty limited production on the reference itself. Interesting thing to note is the watch is transitional. So updated solid D-Link Jubilee bracelet, hidden clasp, which is really interesting in the reference range, introduction of sapphire crystal, and then of course it has a quick set movement. Which kind of makes them a little bit more on the transitional side. But within the reference range, with a non-exotic dial such as this one, we'll see the usage of tritium well within the reference range. So kind of a more transitional watch with the incorporation of some modern details, like including a sapphire crystal, quick set date, hidden jubilee, clasp, things like that we see in today's reference ranges that are coming from Rolex. The reason why we wanted to talk about this one is it's really special because it incorporates what we would call an exotic dial. Now, the term exotic dial gets thrown around a lot. Paul Newman's, yes, you can refer to those as like exotic dials, or any racing dial or something like that can be considered an exotic dial. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this, and the reason why we're referring to it as an exotic dial, is because for a really short period of time, within the 1970s and into the 1980s, Rolex manufactured timepieces featuring exotic materials within the dial itself. So those dials were made from a wide variety of materials, including stone and wood and things like that. Some of the common minerals and woods that we'll see are Burlwood and black onyx, African mahogany, lapis, birch, and among some other dials. And obviously some of those dials are more rare than others. Like for example, black onyx dials are a little bit more common than, let's say, a Tiger Eye, or even a sandstone dial. If there's a sandstone dial, and there's bloodstone and all kinds of interesting dials that come out of this period, which makes them really, really special. Like most things that are kind of cool now and also very rare, these dials kind of had a mixed response when Rolex introduced them into the market. They weren't really that popular, but now they're very rare and obviously very desirable because they're unique. The other thing that's really, really interesting is that most often you will see an exotic or a stone dial within a day date, not a date just. So that's what makes this really, really interesting and special. Rolex would have used these dials with their kind of premium luxury reference, which was of course the day date. And it's less common to actually see a date just with a stone dial, which makes this example from 1979 very, very rare and also very sought after. One thing to also note, and what kind of drives collectability and also price point within stone dials, is the condition of the dial itself. So a couple of things. One, the dials being not that popular, I think there was a period of time where you could get a stone dial for relatively inexpensive just because they were probably sitting within the hands of the authorized dealers for a really long time. The other thing too is a lot of times the dials were removed out of the watches and a normal stock standard dial was put in. The authorized dealers did that a lot. So you'll see dials that are maybe damaged or look like they've been worn because they've been kind of just floating outside of a case. The other thing that's very interesting is that the dials are made of a natural material that is going to age in a way that is different than something that was manufactured or produced to be inside of a watch. So the wood can tarnish and fade and crack. Same thing with stone. Sometimes you'll see the watch with a cracked dial, which of course is going to affect the price point and the desirability and ultimate collectability of the reference dramatically if there is any kind of damaging or negative patina in the watch itself. This example checks all of our boxes. It's right in the middle of the production run, being in 1979, so it's kind of in the earlier range of the reference range. The condition of the watch is really, really nice. The case and the bracelet, everything is very, very nice. But what's really interesting is the dial is flawless. And it's just an incredible dial. It remains really nice, intact, non-lume dial, non-lume hands, which is also kind of nice. There are a couple of different dial variants within the stone dial range. There are dials that are signed T-Swiss T, and typically those watches will have luminous material, tritium of course, within the hands. And then there are examples that possess the luminous hands. So this is one of those references that does not have luminous material within the hands itself. The stone dials typically do not have any markers on them at all. There are some examples that will have like a gold numerical reference. Typically in the day-date range, you'll have a 6 and or a 9, which is kind of weird if we're thinking about it. There are also gem set dials within the stone range, but very, very rare. The other thing that's really interesting is most often we will see the stone dials or the wood dials within yellow gold references. The white gold or white metal watches that incorporate a stone dial or a wood dial are insanely rare. I've only seen a handful of them, but they definitely are out there. And typically the plaque that surrounds either the day or the date window, in this case on the date just, is going to be in a white metal. Also same thing with the hands, and then the coronet is also going to be in white gold. So those dials are like mouse nuts essentially in terms of their production, as well as just being out there. I've only seen a handful of them. So very, very interesting watch, very, very striking, very, very interesting. This watch, I say this a lot, but this is incredible. I'm really keen on this example and stoked to have it. So I wanted to share it with you guys and talk a little bit about stone dials, as I think in the past few years we've seen the collector market really gravitate towards stone dials, and they're truly rare, meaning that there is not a lot of them out there. When you see them, the condition varies widely, and I just think it's a really unique and kind of cool thing that happened in that time period within the late 70s into the 80s, where Rolex was actually taking a natural material like a stone or a wood or an exotic natural resource and incorporating that into their watch. I think it's just phenomenal and cool. So this one will be listed for sale on our website, but it probably won't last long. So I'll provide a link in the description below. I think we'll probably also do a blog post on these stone dials and the exotic wood dials that kind of come from the late 1970s and the 1980s. So when that is done, we'll also provide a link in the description below so you can check that out, because these watches are pretty cool and pretty special. So in any case, links, all that stuff provided below. Also be sure to check us out on Instagram, David, boom, provide the Instagram thing, because that's where we post a lot of our new finds and watches that we're sourcing, as well as some historical reference points. So there's obviously a lot of history and a lot of pop culture and things like that that are associated with what we do, which is vintage timepieces. So be sure to follow us on Instagram, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Okay guys, thanks for tuning in. I will see you in the next episode. See you later. Highly caffeinated today. Highly caffeinated.